Well, this is Dateline News and Conversation coming to you live on May 29th, 2026 from Yalta in the Crimea. My guest is live in Yerevan, Armenia. But before we get to that, I have to tell you, those of you who are watching this now and who will watch it later, I'm very angry, very unhappy, and very unsettled at what the government in the United States is doing. Together with the genocidal apartheid entity, Zionist entity in Israel against Iran, Lebanon, Palestine, and Gaza. You're all, I hope, very well aware of that. I'm very angry at what this government is doing and playing a very deadly game in Ukraine by giving a wink to the the UK, Germany, and France, wink, who are firing those missiles, and they're not just drones, they are missiles, guided missiles, assisted by US satellite technology deep into Russia, most recently absolutely destroying a dormitory that's taken the lives of some 31 girls and some of their instructors in Lugansk in the Donbass. If that's not enough, little narco Mario Rubio just made headlines in Armenia, in Yerevan, when he showed up there to sign some deals involving minerals and rare earth minerals with Armenia. And I can't stand mentioning his names, but the 47th President of the United States just came out and completely and fully endorsed Armenia's treasonous Prime Minister, Pashinyan, to be elected as president, prime minister. And elections are going on as we speak. Now I have to show you my shirt. Boot prints on the flag of the United States of America, which represents the government of the United States of America, which is evil, which is behind every conflict I've just mentioned, including many others. The presidency of number 47 is unprecedented. He is stirring up trouble everywhere on this continent. As an American, somebody that grew up in the 1940s and 50s in the United States, as a patriotic American, I have got to say this, and I am quoting Henry David Thoreau some 161 years ago, somewhere around 1865, where he said this: "How does it become a man to behave towards the American government today?" 1865. I answer that he cannot, without disgrace, be associated with it. Let that sink in. 161 years ago, I answer that. I cannot, without disgrace, be associated with the government of the United States of America. How many countries around the world have burned this flag? How many countries around the world have trampled upon this flag because of their hatred of what the United States of America has done and continues to do in their country? So yes, I'm angry. I'm unapologetic. And I will continue to speak out as I have for more than 20 plus years about the evils, the atrocities, and the lies that this government has perpetrated not only in the American people, but all over the world. Tonight, we're going to talk about what the evil empire is doing to victimize the tiny country of Armenia. Now, I have been there on 2 occasions. I have several friends there. Among them are members of opposition parties to the government who are doing all they can to be recognized as members of the parliament in Armenia with the upcoming elections. We're going to talk about that tonight. We're also going to talk about the fact that the little Cuban Narco Mario Rubio, who was just in Yerevan signing deals to explore and share rare earth minerals with the United States. And number 47, as I mentioned earlier, has just came out and completely endorsed the current prime minister, the treasonous traitor of the Armenian public, the Armenian 2,000-year-old history and culture and religion, by unconditionally supporting Pashinyan. I'm very angry about that. And tonight, with my good friend, who's been on the shows many times before, Natalia Saghian. Natalia, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me again.
Well, you can tell from this introduction I'm not happy.
Yes.
You right now are a member of one of the opposition parties
Yes.
in the government in Yerevan. I want you to tell me what you've been doing recently, what members of your party, and there is another opposition party that I know of, what you are doing to be recognized and why. So let's start with that, and then we'll continue with some of these other very contentious issues.
Okay, so the election campaign officially started on 8th of May, and all parties registered at the Central Election Commission were allowed to start campaigning. There were 19 political powers registered, but one of them withdrew from the race for whatever reason. So now there are 18. 16 parties and 2 alliances. Our party, since we're becoming 10 years old this year. In summer this year, we're going to celebrate our 10th anniversary. But we consciously refused to accept people who, let's say, gained wealth through ways which are not clear to us. We do not accept oligarchs and other people who cannot report the origin of their wealth whatsoever. So our party has very limited resources. And we have elaborated a plan how to run our election campaign with these limited resources. So we decided that we're going to use all possibilities provided to us by law, which is as follows: 25 minutes for 30 days of election campaign, in total 25 minutes of free coverage on all multiplex TV companies, 25 minutes each. And usually we can agree with them on the schedule. Like one day we can have a video of 2 minutes 58 seconds length, sometimes more, sometimes less. The target is not to exceed 25 minutes because the paid minutes are very expensive and we cannot afford it. So we decided to use that, also to use certain number of free minutes of coverage by Armenian National Radio and social media, plus campaigning in the streets, like door to door, face to face, spreading our leaflets and booklets and all other printed materials that we have, including also interviews and debates on all available TV channels and podcasts and anything that is available in Armenia. We're using it, and we can say actually that our campaign is going on quite successfully, because we are campaigning not only in Yerevan. We visited several regions, and several more visits to regions are to come. There's only a little more than 1 week left. Elections are on the 7th of June. So today we evaluated these past days of campaigning. Today is 29th, so it's 21 day of campaigning. And we are satisfied, which is to prove, this is yet another opportunity to prove that if you work in accordance with the law, in fact, even if you are not an oligarch or a very rich person or an ex-president with wealth origin of which you cannot report for, you can still have a successful election campaign using whatever resources are provided to you by the election code.
So, Natalia, what have you personally been doing? Have you been engaging in debates? Have you appeared on television? Are you
Yes.
appearing on blogs? Tell me what you personally have been doing.
Me personally, I've been invited for several interviews, which are like just interviews, an opportunity to present our election, like our program, and explain about the 7 points of our program in more detail. And I've been also invited several times, 4 or 7 times, to take part in big debates on Armenian First Public Television, which is a state-funded television that broadcasts on the all territory of Armenia. So it has like millions of viewers, not only in Armenia, also in diaspora, in Russia, in the United States, all over the place.
How do you think you're doing? You know, I explained in my opening the anger that I have about Marco Rubio just being there, publicly signing these deals with America, promising to support Armenia in these elections, but to bring them back out of the Russian sphere into the sphere of NATO the European Union and the United States. And I'm really disgusted with that because it's another example of the United States directly interfering and meddling in the internal affairs of another sovereign country. They did it recently in Bulgaria and in Georgia. They've done it in other countries. So, how do you think you're doing in the face of this outside meddling of, I'm going to say it what it is, the satanic empire? How do you think you're doing?
You are absolutely right about the US and shamelessly interfering in the internal issues of the Republic of Armenia. Especially, it is ridiculous because the US and the EU were those who started this conversation about their concerns about Russia taking steps to interfere with these elections and overthrow Pashinyan, and this mad woman Kaya Kallas from the European Union, and also several officials from the United States announced that they're not going to allow it to happen. They will not allow any external interference, and they will help Armenia the way they help Moldova and all that. And today, what we see is that Marco Rubio is coming to Armenia for half an hour. Look, he was here for about 2 hours, and he had a half an hour meeting with our Minister of Foreign Affairs. And the next day, President of the United States published this whatever statement, whatever it was. Well, this is our position of our party is as follows. Curators of Nikol Pashinyan from abroad realized that his rating is very low and his re-election is endangered. So they took this last desperate step to show that the United States support Nikol Pashinyan, so that Nikol Pashinyan's propaganda can use this, the fact of the visit of Marco Rubio and the following statement of President of the United States, as a sign that Pashinyan is supported in the West. We think that they realized that his position is desperate, so they decided to interfere directly. And this looks even more ugly because considering the previous statements they made that they're not going to allow anyone to interfere and they want Armenia to have free and democratic elections. Hypocrisy.
Right. Yeah. In your face, bold-faced hypocrisy and lies. So I guess I have two questions. I actually have a whole lot more questions, but is Pashinyan really in danger of losing this election?
Yes. Losing, look, the election code says the following. If, after counting all the votes, no political power collects 52% of the votes, and no coalition is being formed after that to have 52% of the votes, they go to the second tour. But the second tour is being held only for two parties that collected most votes. So those who actually collect 4% and more are considered elected. Those remain elected. And we go for the second tour of elections to see who gets the 52, like the control package in the parliament. For Pashinyan, it's a problem if he doesn't manage to collect 52 in the first tour, because it will show to everyone, including President Aliyev, that Pashinyan is illegitimate. Illegitimate to the degree that Azerbaijan needs him to be able to sign the peace treaty that Azerbaijan wants. Because signing is not enough. The peace treaty needs to be ratified by the parliament. So if Pashinyan doesn't have parliament under his full control, having 52+%, he will not be able to push forward the ratification of this very, very arguable and questionable peace treaty that Aliyev wants to push forward. And it's not only the matter of peace treaty with Azerbaijan. There are plenty of other reasons. This trip thing that the paper was signed on 8th of August last year, our situation with Russia, situation with Eurasian Economic Union and membership of Armenia therein. Many, many other issues depend on that. And Pashinyan knows that if he loses control, he will not be able to fulfill promises he gave to his curators outside Armenia. And the second tour is still bad, because even if they manage to do something about him getting 52 at the second poll, still he will not be able to claim that he is hugely supported and democratically elected, because he had to go for the second tour. So he needs to do whatever it takes to get the 52% at the second tour. For this reason, he is already dragging into elections all the, one-man show parties, tiny parties, which are funded from the West and are traditionally taking part in all elections that took part before today to get votes and then to be able to pass these votes to Pashinyan through, making coalition with him or by other possible and available options. So, yes, he's desperate. This is why he kind of organized everything to have elections right after this European political whatever event that was. We spoke about it. To show that Macron supports him very much. And Macron is not much. What is the difference? Macron is just French Pashinyan. And then he organized a huge parade on the 28th of May, which is the First Republic Day. First Republic that existed from 1918 to 1920 or something. It only existed for 2 years and was disgracefully disorganized and abolished when Armenia decided to join the Soviet Union. So we do celebrate it because after a long period of not having statehood, this First Republic was the first time for 600 years that we had statehood. This is why we celebrate it. But it's not an occasion for a military parade. But what he wanted to do is to show how strong he is. And now Armenia produces drones, very good that Armenia produces drones. But why didn't you do it on the 9th of May, the day of our victory? Why did you postpone it to wait until the 1 week before elections to show off and to show, this is such a cheap manipulation and disgraceful manipulation. And now this statement made by the President of the United States and brief visit of Marco Rubio. I don't know where he was heading, but obviously it was just a stopover, which was Armenia was used. This stopover was used to grant Pashinyan, an image of support from the United States. Because this is what we're thinking, is that they analyze the situation and realize that his position is very weak.
Wow. I can only hope that you are successful. But I want you to talk a little bit about what really is at stake. Now, Armenia is a very old, you could even say ancient culture. It goes back at least 2,000 years to the early years of Christianity. The followers and apostles of Jesus came to Armenia. Armenia became the first really Christian state in the entire world. The Armenian Apostolic Church is 2,000 years old. You have a language, you have a history, you have this culture, and you have this belief in Christianity that really goes back 2,000 years. Natalia, to me, it seems that all of this is at stake with this treasonous imposter Pashinyan who is looking to destroy it all. Am I off base or would you agree?
Um, no, you're right. Uh, it's been for some time now, years, that Pashinyan took a position, opposing the Armenian Apostolic Church. Why is it important? Let's just put a stress here for those who will watch this video. Armenian Apostolic Church maintained Armenian language, culture, our national identity throughout the almost 600 years when Armenians had no statehood. And it is only thanks to our church that now we continue speaking Armenian, writing in Armenian, that we have our literature, we have our national identity, our culture. So, just for that, even if we do not consider many other aspects of influence and important role of Armenian Church in the society, even if we only take this role of the Armenian Apostolic Church, um, we should understand that maintenance of Armenian Apostolic Church in its status as it is now, because according to Armenian constitution, Armenian Apostolic Church has a special status over other religious organizations. And to have that one sentence in our constitution, Armenia had go through a very serious battle with the European Union, with the Council of Europe, and with several other international organizations, which are called to, provide conditions for, development of democracy, because they were strictly against it. And the Venice Commission, which is usually giving an opinion on constitutions and amendments to constitutions in different countries, had lots of issues with that. But Armenia managed to push forward its ideas and beliefs that Armenian Apostolic Church has to be protected in the constitution, even though we respect the freedom of belief of everyone who lives in Armenia or visits Armenia. But the role of Armenian Apostolic Church is unquestionable. This is why we went through a serious struggle to be able to put that one line in our constitution. We were amending it in 2015, the last amendments were made. And this is when this one sentence was added, that Armenian Apostolic Church has a higher, superior position over all other religious organizations. And now Pashinyan is talking against it, saying that we violate Universal Convention of Human Rights because of freedom of religion and freedom of belief has to be maintained 100%. But this is just an excuse. Obviously, he understands that the church is probably the one remaining, pillar of Armenian society that doesn't let our society to fall apart totally, because society is so polarized, and this polarization is generated artificially, because it is good for Pashinyan to have polarized population, and it is also good for several other political parties which are also in opposition, and with all due respect to these political powers, but they are, fueled by money of oligarchs. Again, with all due respect to all these people, and Samvel Karapetyan, he is a significant figure, and he's done a lot of good things for Armenia. And he's been a political prisoner. There's no question about it. But I think that a businessman should stick to his business. And second president, Robert Kocharian, with all due respect, he is a former president of my country. But he lost his grip. He hasn't been in the politics ever since he was not re-elected in 2008. After that, he left politics and only returned in 2018 and became an opposition, but he also lost his grip. And people are, Pashinyan is using participation of the second president in electoral processes as an excuse, saying that he robbed our country when he was a president. And now he wants to return to continue robbing people. And it works. and it brings to even more deeper polarization in the society. So what we are doing, our political power, we're also in opposition to Pashinyan, but we do not take this road of either we, extinguish each other and we destroy each other. So, we all should die, or we win. We think that this is a road leading to nowhere, especially in politics. Obviously, we're not ready, and we're not considering allying to Pashinyan, or making a coalition with him after elections if we suppose that we collect the 4% and we're in the parliament. No, nothing of the kind. There's no cooperation possible. But we think that taking this highly radical road in politics, taking into account the situation that Armenia is in now, is a wrong way that leads to nowhere, because we have problems with Russia that have become even worse recently, like within last 10 days. Like Russia banned the import of flowers and apricots and several other agricultural products from Armenia, which is a big deal for local population. And constant negative rhetorics between Armenia and Russian Federation, it's a very unhealthy situation, considering what is happening in Iran now and what US is doing with Iran. And Iran is our most friendly neighbor that we have out of the four. With all due respect to our Georgian neighbors, several times we faced betrayal on their part. Also during the 44-day war, when they closed all the roads and did not allow ammunition to go through their territory to Armenia, because they were pushed to it by Turkey and their European curators. And this is the question that is mostly discussed during all debates that I participate, is whether Armenia should stay a strategic ally of Russia, or take its way towards NATO, or should Armenia stay in Eurasian Economic Union, or make real steps towards the EU, which is not a dilemma in reality, because nobody is expecting Armenia in NATO, because Turkey is a NATO member state, and Turkey will, okay, imagine hypothetically that Armenia leaves its alliance with Russia and heads towards NATO. We can, even now, I can name 10 preconditions that Turkey will roll out before it will even consider Armenia joining NATO. We do understand that Turkey is a very dangerous neighbor that we're having. And the same situation is with EU. Nobody is expecting Armenia in EU. Of course, what they say now is, you can start, bringing your standards in accordance with European Union standards, but it's a long way to go. We see that how long did it take for Georgia? How long did it take for Ukraine? Turkey is waiting for I don't know how long before they even get a candidate status. So it's 10 years minimum. But during these 10 years, if we put our foot on that road, we will immediately have to stop cooperation with Eurasian Economic Union. And what are we going to do during these 10 years when we do not have the backup of Eurasian Economic Union, and the EU is not accepting us because we did not bring our standards, in accordance with their standards? What are we going to do? Suppose it's 10 years. How are we going to survive? So it's not really a dilemma. It's an artificial agenda that is being dragged into the political field of Armenia just to create more polarization and to make it even more difficult for people to choose. Because 18 political powers, it's already, a big choice. And it's a problematic choice. Especially that, set aside Pashinyan, he is using administrative resource as much as he can, at the fullest range he can. But three other largest parties, which are fueled by oligarchs and other rich people who want to bring these parties to power for totally different personal and subjective reasons, these parties have more resources than, for example, our party. So long before the official election campaign started on 8th of May, You could see posters of their first, leaders everywhere. No text, just a face, but it's a recognizable face. So it's already a propaganda because they have the financial resources. So our position is that we eventually need to come to a political situation in Armenia where there is a combat between political ideas, not between different financial resources. And this adds to the problematic situation in Armenia. The situation itself is very complicated. And this artificially pumped up competition between the opposition parties makes everything even worse.
Wow, Natalia, I really appreciate that overview. Um, I'm taking notes. Um, I can only hope because I have a great deal of love for Armenia, your country. I've been there on two occasions. We've met with you, we've met with others. Um, it's a beautiful country. The people are friendly, the people are kind. The recent history has been brutal, uh, been brought on by outside influences. And I think the one thing that troubles me is that uh, Russia has not seemed to counter the the U.S. and Western pressure. What are your comments about that? Do you think Russia should have been more influential in intervening? Because the history of Armenia and Russia, uh, back to the Soviet Union, it's one of the most friendly countries to Russia. So, how would you describe that?
Indeed, what we witness now is a total I don't know, lack of activity from the Russian side. But I can understand it because Russia always makes the following statement whenever there are upcoming elections in any neighboring state or partner state. They always make the same statement that they are not interfering. The only thing they can do is to send observers in accordance with the electoral code of Armenia, and they hope that the Central Electoral Commission of Armenia gives accreditation to these observers and allows them to observe. And I understand this position, but this position is justified when there is a fair game, fair play. This is not a fair play. This is not a fair play for Armenia, for people of Armenia, for opposition political parties of Armenia, and this is not a fair play for Russia because the other side is using every string possible to influence elections in Armenia.
Yep, yep. Uh, I have felt for some time uh, that Russia has not been keeping pace with the information wars, with the influence of the United States specifically uh, in meddling in the affairs of other countries all over the world. You can look what's happening in Venezuela. You look what's happening now in South America. Russia, America claiming this is our hemisphere.
Mhm.
You look at what they're about to do with Cuba. Um, and, it's just, there's no end to this quest for world domination. I don't know how else you can describe it. And
Mhm.
Armenia just seems to be the latest and the maybe the most important in terms of an upcoming election. And I see this Well, we lost the internet for a few minutes there, a few seconds.
Yeah.
What I was saying is, I see this as a very disturbing trend and situation where the United States of America is interfering directly in the internal affairs of Armenia, and I'm really wondering how Russia is going to deal with this going forward, because this Pashinyan, he went in glad-handed with Putin, but he's stabbing him in the back, and I think this is a very unfortunate situation. Natalia, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show. I can't thank you enough for sharing not only the history of Armenia, but sharing with this audience the struggle that you and others, patriotic Armenians, are involved in with trying to preserve the sovereignty, the history, the culture, and the religion of your country. I thank you. And, we will continue to do everything we can to bring this to light to a larger audience, especially people in the United States. Natalia,
Thank you.
thank
Thank
you
you
so
for
much.
inviting me.